We're good.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our meeting today. So, let's call the meeting to order on December 2nd at 10 a.m. And let's begin with a roll call. Tanya, can you go through the roll call for us?
Sure. Jordan Basham.
Here.
David Brinkley. Brian Campbell.
Here.
Rachel Cato.
Present.
Jordan Cole.
Here.
Emily England.
Present. Sorry.
Anthony Gilbert.
Present.
Monica Hines.
Present.
Julia Johnson.
Present.
Steve Lancaster.
Present.
Mike Loftus.
Present.
Lauren Ocello. Jared Smith.
Here.
Rhonda Sullivan.
Present.
Doug Tate.
Here.
Robert Unseld.
Here.
Tanya Vincent, present. Christopher Ware.
Present.
Jennifer Wilson.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. First item on the agenda is to approve the monthly minutes from November. Has everybody had a chance to review those? There's anybody have any corrections that need to be made? And Tanya, thank you for putting those together. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay.
Hey, Mike, who was the second? I'm sorry, I missed that. Was it Rachel or?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Rachel.
Okay, the motion passed. The November minutes have been approved. All right, so let's go on with the officer and standing committee and the staff regent report. So I guess in my meeting with President Caboni, he reiterated that once possible, the top priority is to restore people's salaries. It did take the salary reduction, and they are looking on that on a daily basis. And he just wanted everyone to know that is their top priority when that can happen. Let's see, and another item to bring up is because with the changes with the health department with COVID-19 and contact tracing, university just wants to reiterate that they are doing contact tracing for people on campus and notifying people, even though Grand River Health District may not be making those phone calls. So that is still happening on campus. And it's either before the winter break or at the start of the year, there'll be an email that'll be going out, kind of give a current financial status, or just a general status of where we're at with the university. Will be going out sometime either before the break or after. Right, I don't think that's been decided yet. Right now, and I'm sure our guest speakers can reiterate on this some more, but from the spring registration is on track with the budget. And let's see what else. Oh, and the director of internal audit position search for the board of regents is in progress, and they're currently narrowing down the finalists for interviews. And I guess that's all for my report. So Monica, is there a vice chair report, or do you have any report for the workforce committee?
We, as far as workforce committee, we have been meeting and we'll continue to meet before the end of the semester, working on the survey, the staff survey and a few other things. And I'll just keep it short and sweet. That's about it.
Okay. Tanya, is there a secretary report or report from the university committees?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Emily, is there a report from the treasury report or the budget and finance committee?
No, not at this time.
Do we have, let's see, Jennifer or Chris, is there a communication technology report?
Well, I'm going to defer to Jennifer for the communications committee report. I don't have a technology report this month.
Jennifer, about communication report.
We just had a brief discussion regarding putting some more resources on our webpage for staff, but we're going to look more into that for next semester.
Is that all of our, Doug, is there a parliamentarian report?
No report at this time.
Okay. And David, is there a staff regent report?
We have not had a meeting since I believe we last reported. We have a meeting on the 11th. The time recently changed to the morning. Other than that, since I have not seen an agenda, I don't have a report. I will encourage everyone to check the agenda when it is public next Monday. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments, as always, reach out directly to me and I'll be happy to as I review them as well, go over that and contribute any feedback that you all have.
All right, thank you, David. Okay, so we are going to move on to our guest speakers. First up, we're going to have Bruce Schulte and Jeff Hook and speak on Innovation Campus. So I will turn that over to you two. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for letting us come today and present to everybody. I'm going to share my screen. Everybody, somebody see that? Mike, can you see that okay?
Looks good.
Okay, thanks, Emily. Appreciate it. So again, thank you for letting Jeff and I present today. I'm going to give you just a little background on the idea of the Innovation Campus and where we're at presently, and invite everybody to comment on the planning document that I believe I sent to Mike. And Mike, if you don't have a current copy of that, I can resend it. But it's an open planning process, and we also have a pretty solid foundation on which to build an innovation campus, and that's what Jeff and I will try to give you a little background on today. So as everybody knows, we started a new strategic plan a couple of years ago. We're now in the 5th semester of it, so we're 25% through our current strategic plan. And the plan basically consists of these 3 major parts: our students, our Hill, and our community and beyond. And within our community and beyond, there are a number of goals. And I'm not going to read all these goals, but just look at the highlighted one. The first one, goal 1, is a regional lighthouse, establish WKU as a regional lighthouse, and you can read the rest. But that's within that goal, there are a series of strategies, and you can again read these at your leisure. The strategic plan is available on the website, so anybody can look at that. But the 5th strategy is the one that's relevant for today's presentation. It's to transform the WKU Center for Research and Development, also known as a CRD, into a true innovation campus. And I won't read all that to you, but you can look at that. So there are a lot of innovation campuses across the country, and they vary in their role and structure and how large they are and all those different components. But an innovation campus for a particular university is tailored to the needs of the community and the university itself. And it's a two-way street of engagement. And of course, we've been doing that at Western for a long time. So we have a solid foundation on which to build a more expansive innovation campus. So that's sort of the focus of today's presentation. And just to give you a little bit background, in my position as Associate Vice President, I'm also Executive Director of the WKU Research Foundation. So I'm involved in intellectual property, tech transfer, and commercialization. And as Executive Director of the Research Foundation, I interact with the Board of Directors, and I wanted to put their names up here. You can see the voting group, which consists of some faculty on campus, as well as members and staff. Jeff is on there, Whitney's on there, as well as people from the community. And these direct the activities of the Research Foundation with me serving as the Executive Director. And then we have a series of non-voting members and staff members that are involved in keeping the foundation going. So the Research Foundation has a series of goals and objectives from which the Innovation Campus can emerge and grow upon. And so the Board of Directors has been very formative in helping to create the planning document that is available for people's input. So the basic tenets of the planning document are to expand our inclusive environment that we continue to build at the university, to develop innovative ideas, to grow businesses in our community, and to nurture, retain, and attract talent. So we want students who graduate from Western to be able to have a good job in the region. And so we want to build upon that. People who start to rise up in their professions in the region, we want to be able to keep them in the region and not have them feel like they have to go someplace else for further advancement. And we also want to be attractive to bringing people back into the region, whether it's our alums or others, to continue to grow the quality of our community. So the physical landscape for the Innovation Campus is at the Center for Research and Development, which has been there for almost 20 years now. And for those of you who you probably all know where it is, I just like this slide because it's a little bit dated back in the day when it was being formally changed from the old mall to the CRD. And you can see Dollar General's no longer there. And there's a lot of green spaces that are no longer there because Bowling Green continues to grow and prosper. And so a lot of that has become businesses and stuff now. But when I talk to the students, this kind of shocks them when they see how much it's changed over the last decade or so. So Jeff's with us today as well. And Jeff Hook has been the director of the CRD for some time. He's been involved with the development of businesses in the region throughout that period. And there's been a lot of successes that have occurred through the CRD over time, some of which I think people are probably aware of, some of which maybe not. And so I wanted to give Jeff the opportunity today to talk a little bit about some of the successes of the CRD and the foundation on which we're building the Innovation Campus. This is a screenshot from the CRD website. I'm not going to go to that link today, but if you go there, there's a very nice short video on the Small Business Accelerator. And although it starts out with Jeff, it features a lot of other entities down at the CRD. And it's a really worthwhile thing to watch if you aren't as familiar with all the successes. So Jeff, if you've been able to, are you with us?
I am.
Okay, can you take it from here for a few slides and then pitch it back to me when you're done?
Happy to do it. And forgive me, I was actually doing 2 Zooms at once today. I've got another Zoom in the adjacent room. So jumping in and out. So Bruce, thank you. I just want to give just a little snapshot of the Center for Research and Development, the Small Business Accelerator. I'll cover just a few minutes. And the way I really want to do it is through examples of engagement. The Center for Research and Development, give quick background just in case there are people that don't know the situation, consists of primarily 3 types of entities. WKU Applied Research Laboratories, a variety of laboratories at the facility. That's entity type 1. Knowledge-based businesses, most of which are located in the WKU Small Business Accelerator that's been there. We're in our 17th year of operation. So economic development entities is another type of entity at the facility. I'm also the executive director for the Central Region ICC, which is an economic development entity with a mission to facilitate the creation, growth, recruitment, and retention of science and technology companies in the central region of the state of Kentucky. So what does all that mean? We work with businesses. We work with primarily startup businesses. And we have been for many years. So again, 3 types of entities: knowledge-based businesses, economic development entities, and applied research labs are primarily what's located at the Center for Research and Development. So in that business accelerator, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with business accelerator models, our function is to engage startup and early stage companies and help them to be more successful, right? And we do that in a variety of ways, everything from guiding them to funding sources, to guiding them to strategic partnerships, to prototype development, market research, all across the board. Our function is to understand the resources they need to go from where they're at today with their business model to a cash flow break even or positive business, okay? And we, again, approach that like business development consultants. We engage them and we get intimately knowledgeable about their business so we can identify their needs. And then our job is to go out and help find the things they need. And I just covered some of those, which gets us to WKU and how these companies engage WKU and what comes from that for both sides. Obviously, there's an economic development mission here involved. We help create these companies. They create jobs and opportunities, okay? So the engagement piece for WKU, and I want to touch on several of these. So regional entrepreneurs and WKU students, Raven Kirkpatrick Price, company that didn't start in our accelerator, but it was a very small entity, moved into our accelerator years ago, grew up. They're in the information security business. So here's where I want to get into how the WKU Center for Research and Development has been a student engagement engine, okay? So Raven as they start and grow in our accelerator, they need resources. Those resources include people, obviously, heart of any business. So they've worked very closely with us and others within the university to identify internship opportunities. And they had a lot of staff members sitting in the WKU Small Business Accelerator that were WKU students and graduates. Now they've grown up and out of the accelerator years ago. They're still in the community. I think last time I checked, they have probably 25 WKU graduates and students that work there. So from our perspective, we've done several things to accomplish our mission. We helped that company at the early stages grow. In many ways, we supported them. We also found opportunities for our WKU students to be engaged with that company and gain experience from that. And by that company being retained in our region, growing in our region, opportunities were created for our students when they graduate. They now don't have to leave the region necessarily. They've got a good opportunity in Bowling Green with a knowledge-based company, right? So that was the long first example. I'll give you much quicker examples going forward. Bluegrass Supply Chain Services, one of our first tenants in the WKU Small Business Accelerator. Started out as one person who's in there 3 or 4 years. He's grown out many years ago into the community, and he has about 1,000 employees. So Bluegrass is another perfect example of what happens when these knowledge-based businesses are engaged with WKU. He's got many WKU graduates that have opportunities with him and therefore have stayed in the region. So retaining talent to the region is part of our mission. Electronic Warfare Associates, this and Vayon, they sort of tie together to tell you an interesting story. EWA started in the accelerator many, many years ago. They do just like it says they do. They were in electronic warfare. They actually monitored Department of Defense servers from within the WKU Small Business Accelerator. There was a SCIF, a military SCIF in that facility. So things happen in there people have no idea about. And this is sort of why we want to share this. So what happens? I'll spare you the info about their business model, and I'll get to the most important part. They hired WKU graduates from engineering, math, physics, English, a wide variety of people went to work for EWA, okay, and worked there for a number of years. Kept that talent in Bowling Green. Well, things changed. That business model had a headquartered in Virginia. Things changed. They retracted, closed down operations. But because there was another company we were working with called Vayon, and we had a connection with them and we had a connection with EWA, the vast majority of the EWA WKU graduates that lost their jobs were funneled straight to Vayon, where they immediately got jobs. And again, because the opportunity of that knowledge base, that tech company being in this region, those top end students and graduates got to stay here. So Bruce, I spent a long time on that slide, but I'm just trying to express to everyone that the facility it's about economic development. It's leverageable by WKU faculty, staff, students. Anybody that has a business idea can engage us, and we're going to support them just like we do those external companies. Those external companies, we want them to succeed, but we want to leverage that for WKU specifically and the community. So that's, again, bringing opportunities for WKU talent. I didn't even touch on the faculty engagement and staff engagement. Almost all those entities have been engaged with other entities at WKU. In some cases, those applied research labs that are co-located in the building work directly with some of those companies on projects. So student entrepreneurs, let's talk specifically about them now real quickly. We have a student business accelerator program, okay? If you come off the street and you want to locate in the WKU Small Business Accelerator, you pay to do that, right? We're not a landlord, we have overhead. So you pay to be in that building and in the middle of that ecosystem. If you're a WKU student, you do not. You have that same benefit. You can be in that facility, surrounded in that by those entrepreneurs in that entrepreneurial ecosystem, and you get a lot of support tools to help you with a potential business. So here are a few examples. And interestingly enough, I just drove by a spot where they're building a new facility for the Spartan Garage. So we worked with Robert Bowden Jr. shortly after he came to WKU. He was referred to us by the Business College, Whitney Peak Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at that time. So we worked with him. He located in our facility. What did we do for Robert? Well, we made a lot of connections. That's a big part of what we do. We connect in the automotive industry people. We connect them to the chamber. We connect them to mentors. We connect them to money, a wide variety of things. So Robert's an example of a guy that came to Western. He was an entrepreneur when he came. He worked out of his house, his parents' house in Atlanta for years. So this guy had that entrepreneurial spirit. Our function is to support that and give him resources that he can leverage to further that. He has created as of about a month ago, 6 jobs, including his own. He has stayed in Bowling Green. He's created a business in Bowling Green, and he's created opportunities in Bowling Green. VidMonster Productions, they were, again, most of the time when we engage students, they already are going down that road. They have entrepreneurial aspirations. Once we identify that, we engage them. VidMonster, video and creative content production. These people are still in Bowling Green. They have moved to Nashville and have 8 employees. That's important from our perspective. Justin Rocky started a marketing company while part of the WKU Student Business Accelerator program. Graduated, stayed in Bowling Green, has several clients in Bowling Green. Hangout Creative, a little older, they're getting a little older stories now. Level Lacrosse, it's a little bit different. It's a tech company, okay? He's still working on this. He has moved out of state, but we worked with him on prototyping, prototype testing, financing, took him around and pitch competitions along with the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. So what am I trying to say? These are examples of people we're engaged with. We try to bring resources to the table to help them start and grow these companies, help retain them in the region and others by creating jobs and opportunities. This is normally like a 2-hour pitch for me, so forgive me, I'm going to cut it off now. But it's all about bringing resources to bear to support people starting and growing knowledge-based companies. And we're very much focused on supporting WKU on the inside in addition to what we do on the outside. And we're constantly trying to make those connections, whether it's staffing, whatever it is, we're looking for opportunities to build those bridges between those companies and WKU. Bingo Size is a good example. There's a Kasha Center at WKU that happens to be located at the WKU Center for Research and Development, along with other centers. Bingo Size is a little different. It's a piece of Kasha. It's a specific product, service that is part of the WKU Small Business Accelerator. And again, because in that scenario, they're trying to pursue a national or international market with their product and or service. And our function is to support those kind of activities. Bruce? So I guess I'll hand it back to you. Sorry for being a little long-winded, but there's quite a story to tell.
No, thanks, Jeff. That's good. And it's good to hear it and have it on tape and have it in the archives, if you will. Just so everybody knows, the rest of these slides I'll do real quickly, but the Commonwealth of Kentucky has started a somewhat new venture. It's sort of a reconfiguration of one that had existed before, known as Kentucky Commercialization Ventures. And you can go to their website. There's a lot of opportunities for faculty, staff, and students to get involved in the possibility of commercialization, of connecting with companies that are startups or are experienced companies that are going off in new directions. And we've already had a number of faculty getting involved in some of their training programs and applying for granting opportunities through them. So whoever's listening, if you're interested in KCV activities, I am the liaison for Western to KCV. We are a member institution within the state of KCV. Again, just to reiterate that we have been doing this very well at Western for some time. We work with the faculty and staff. We're based on what's already happening on the Hill, all these different programs that I won't read through. We are also trying to develop these further and create better conduits between the business community and WKU for these opportunities. One example of that is we're trying to play an active role with internships with the businesses locally, because we know, as you can see the stats on the side there, that internships play a very important role in job acquisition by graduates and in higher salaries at both at the start and in continuing. So we're doing some active collaboration with other entities on campus for internships. Again, what's the role of the Innovation Campus? It's to provide opportunities for students, partner with regional businesses, and enhance the development of intellectual property by both the community at large and by the Western, and create those connections. We're also doing a lot more now with established businesses, not just startups, and trying to get established businesses better engaged with Western. That's, again, been going on for a long time, but sometimes not as broadly or as visibly as we would like. So that's part of the mission of the Innovation Campus. And with that, I thank you, Jeff, and I thank you for your time. Feel free to contact us at any point with questions or inputs, and I will stop sharing, Mike.
Thank you, Bruce and Jeff. Definitely some good things going on there. Does anybody on Staff Senate have any questions for Bruce or Jeff?
Thanks again.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Ethan Logan and Jason Lux to talk about their areas with WKU missions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Staff Senate for having us today. It's a wonderful opportunity, as I'm looking at all of your lovely faces, to speak to you today here post-holiday. I hope that you had a lovely holiday together with family and friends. where health appropriate, and we are grateful to be back and working towards this next enrollment for WKU. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about admissions and recruiting, and Dr. Jason Lux will carry the bulk of this conversation, but I wanted to give kind of an exposition for our conversation today and to talk a little bit about recruitment to the institution. You know, as you're well aware, recruitment to the institution is a critical role of the institution. We are here to educate and to facilitate the education of students to the fulfillment of their graduation and allow for them to be successful. But we can't do that if we don't reach out and enroll students to the institution. And so that's why we have a very concerted, a very focused, and a very integrated process of managing recruitment activities to the institution. And a lot of people don't realize that that's an ongoing process, that that's not just an annual process of a recruitment cycle, but we're talking anywhere from 18 to 24 months that we engage with a student prior to their enrollment at the institution. And so when we talk about enrolling the class of last fall of 2020, that means that we also have already started our engagement with the students of fall 2021. And so we overlap recruitment cycles throughout the course of our daily work. And so it's constant, and it's ever present in terms of the activities that are invoked in the process of recruiting new students to the institution. And so I say that not to brag, but to really commend the work of the staff of admissions for our institution and the fact that they are constantly cultivating the next generation of students to the institution. And I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. We had a very successful year this year, and I'll let Jace talk a little bit more about that. But our institution is really built on a traditional residential model of education and higher education. And that's wonderful. And that's a wonderful market, and we'll always have that market. And we will provide probably the best, in my opinion, experience for students who are looking for a traditional residential higher education experience in Kentucky. That being said, there's others in our community and in our region who can benefit from higher education. That's our transfer student population, our adult student population, those students who are either returning to college who never finished, or those students who are starting college later in life. And everyone can benefit from that experience. And so those markets and those cultivations and those partnerships are an important part of who we are as an institution. And we've been doing some really good work there, especially in distributed or online learning. But what are the things that we will look forward to developing further over the next couple of years is making sure that we're bringing more emphasis and growth in some of our alternative student engagements for recruitment to the institution, along with our traditional student participation. And that'll be self-evident in some conversation that Jace will share with you here in a minute, but it's important that that's a part of growing the culture of our institutional recruitment. So I'm going to turn it over to Jace and let him provide a much better description and demonstration of what we've been up to than I can provide, but it's really a wonderful opportunity to be here and to be able to speak with you. And I'll let Jace showcase the wonderful work of admissions at WKU. Jace?
Well, thank you, Ethan. This is my first week working from home. I have school-aged children who are unable to go to school right now. And of course, today is the day that my neighbors decided to have the tree trimmers show up. So if it's loud in the background, I apologize. And my electricity has already flickered once. So hopefully we won't get disconnected. If I just freeze up and do the Zoom freeze, you know why. They've hit a power line or something. I am going to hopefully share my screen. Let me see if I have that. All right. Are y'all able to see that? Full screen? Okay. Yeah, so when Mike Loftus reached out to Ethan and myself about discussing admissions, we were very excited about the opportunity. And through conversations with him, he thought, and we thought it would probably be best to provide Staff Senate and the greater WKU staff just a general sense of what we do and kind of the populations that we target, and a very 30,000, we won't go into too much boring detail, but a general overview of the recruitment process and what it looks like for your domestic undergraduate students. So that'll kind of be the foundation of our conversation today. Starting off with just an overview for those of you that are familiar with our office, maybe a little bit of a refresher of who we target. Our office works primarily with domestic undergraduate students. We do not admit or recruit graduate students. That happens across the way in Weatherby with the graduate school and their staff. We also, although there is from time to time a little bit of overlap, the Office of Global Learning and International Affairs is the office that is recruiting and admitting international students. So when you think about the work that's done in the WKU Office of Admissions, it's traditionally the domestic undergraduate students. And by and large, just because it's the type of institution that WKU happens to be, it's the traditional age students. Although we do provide support for adult learners, work very closely with the Transfer Center and Adult Learner Services. With that population, we provide support for regional campuses, as well as certificate seekers. We do have not an overwhelming number, but we do have students that are non-degree seeking students, or that are just seeking a certificate or a credential and not necessarily a baccalaureate degree. And then our office provides support for transfer student recruitment and admission. So we have our fingers in a whole lot of pies. Probably the easiest and most concise way to describe the functionality of our office would be to think about it in three primary areas. So we obviously are heavily involved and bear a lot of the responsibility for recruitment of those traditional age domestic students to WKU. Now, you have to understand this is all sort of talking about a non-COVID world right now, but that recruitment happens by and large through high school visits, college fairs, both local, state, and national level college fairs. Our office is responsible for all of the official campus tours that take place to WKU, and then a number of recruitment events both on and off campus. And many of you have participated in some of those on and off campus recruitment events in the past. And we hope to be able to resume those as soon as it's safe to do so. The second area for which we are responsible is the actual admission of the students who apply to WKU. So the document processing, rendering any admission decisions, and then our office also makes the initial residency determination in terms of how a student will be classified for tuition purposes and for reporting purposes through IR and the Council on Post-Secondary Education. Those residency decisions, you would think it'd be very cut and dry, very blunt. You're from Kentucky or you're not from Kentucky, but there are lots and lots and lots of factors that go into a residency decision for a student. And then our office, the third kind of broad umbrella that falls to our office is new student orientation. So almost all new students that are coming to WKU do participate in new student orientation, as they do for any university that they attend. And our office, while we work with a number of other offices across campus, our office is the office that kind of facilitates and bears the primary responsibility for that. So looking at the recruitment side of things, and this may be an image or a concept that is somewhat familiar to some of you, admissions offices generally will talk about their admission funnel. And that's basically just the sequence that our students move through as they move from a prospective student to ultimately what we're shooting for is to have them become an enrolled student. So we start off at the top with prospects, and we acquire names of prospective students in a number of different ways. Many are referred to us by faculty and staff or alumni. Many students take the ACT or SAT or other standardized tests, and we as do all colleges and universities, purchase names of students who will fit our admissions criteria. So generally, depending on the year, we will have roughly about 100,000 prospective students at the top of our funnel that we're communicating with in an attempt to encourage them to apply to WKU. You move a little further down the funnel to inquiries. These are students that have actually raised their hand and said, I'm interested in learning more about WKU, and that happens in a variety of different ways. We have requests for more information forms that students can complete on our website. If a student encounters one of our representatives at a college fair, there are forms that they can fill out to tell us that they're interested in WKU. When a student registers for a campus tour or signs up to attend one of our recruitment events, they become an inquiry. It's a student that's taken some kind of action to let us know that they're interested. What we ultimately hope to do is to convert all of our inquiries to applicants. And then we don't admit everyone that applies. They move down the funnel to admitted students. And then ultimately what we're trying to do is to yield. You'll hear, you talk to folks in enrollment and admissions, you'll hear this term yield a lot. Whenever you hear about that, it's essentially trying to make sure that the students that we admit to WKU actually enroll in classes at WKU. Prior to my time in admissions, I was kind of under the assumption that, well, if you're admitted to a university, then you're going to come to that university, right? And that's not generally the case. On average, national average, about a third of the students that are admitted to any given institution end up enrolling at that institution. National yield generally hovers somewhere around 31 to 33%, and that varies based on institution type. But so roughly about a third of the students that we admit end up enrolling at WKU, and that's pretty standard. This is kind of a behind the curtains look at the data that we track in our office and kind of what that looks like. This is that funnel status broken down in a quantifiable way. So you can see the left-hand column there is what our fall 2019 class looked like. The right-hand column is what our fall 2020 class, the current freshman class, looked like. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this was a snapshot that was taken just before classes began in August. Obviously, census at WKU doesn't occur until October, and so you do have students that were enrolled that ended up leaving the institution, and so those numbers fluctuate a little bit. We ended up settling at about 3,150 students, but at the start of classes, this is kind of what it looked like. So you can see, and this is I think really a point of pride that I like to brag on our team in admissions. Our yield rate for this year's class was over 38%, almost 39%. When you again keep in mind that the national average is about 31 to 33%. I think that's pretty good, and it was a 4% increase over our yield last year, all in the midst of a global pandemic when students and their families weren't even sure if they were going to be able to pay for college, and when families were losing jobs. And so I think this is a real testament to the efforts of the combined efforts, not just of our team in admissions, but everyone in enrollment and everyone at WKU who played a part in getting those students here. And then this is a slide that shows that same information. It's what our enrolled class looked like the week prior to the start of the semester, broken down by race and ethnicity. And this is data that we also track in our office. And I show this only because I'm very pleased with the fact that there were across the board increases, regardless of a student's race or ethnicity. There were increases there. Across the board. It wasn't just all the white students that were choosing to come to WKU, but we did experience significant increases across the board, and we hope to continue to be able to build on that for next fall's class. It's a challenge. There were some inherent challenges with recruitment and college enrollment even prior to COVID that have only been exacerbated, magnified, and added to because of COVID. A lot of you may be familiar with this data, but a couple of years ago, the Chronicle of Higher Education released a pretty sobering report that said for every 100 18-year-olds in America right now, there are only 95 4-year-olds. And so that means there's a smaller population of students from which to draw in the first place. This is an overview of college participation. So this is 2-year and 4-year college participation, degree-seeking students only in Kentucky. And so you can see that over the last 7 years now, there's been a very significant decline in just overall college participation in Kentucky that makes it more difficult to recruit and convince students that they do need to go to college. A lot of that's due to media scrutiny. I think the media does focus incessantly on debt, even though these stories of students taking on irresponsible debt are certainly not the norm, but rather the outliers. But they make for good media, and so that's something that we do have to push back against a little bit. You're all well aware of significant reductions in funding at the state level for higher education. The power of federal financial aid has not been able to keep pace with the inflation that has resulted from rising tuition rates. And so students are now qualifying for the same amount of money that students may have qualified for 5 years ago, even though college tuition has gone up substantially during that time. Showed that there were fewer students and there's increased competition. The emergence of for-profit higher education has certainly put a damper on traditional institutions such as WKU. Students are now applying to numerous institutions. Like I said, my assumption was kind of, oh, well, if we admit a student, then they'll come to WKU. And that certainly is not the case. Students now apply to, some of them apply to 10 or more institutions just to see who will take them and who will give them the most attractive financial package. And then we're certainly dealing with a new, just when we all kind of thought we had our heads wrapped around millennials and what they liked and what their preferences were, we're now dealing with the emergence of Gen Z students, digital natives, they're sometimes referred to. These are the students that from birth are connected to a device. You can see how old this one is. Look at the plug-in there for that iPad. That's like an iPad 1 or something. But anyway, this is the generation of students that we're now working with and engaging with. This is an actual screenshot from an athletic event about a year ago. These young ladies that are part of this college-going age right now were paying no attention to the game, and were focused on what their social media presence was going to look like and how they could be engaged. And this is just kind of an example. It's humorous, but I think it's an example of how really the expectation for students is that the story's about them. They're able to curate their own world now and determine what news they will see and won't see, and what information they will and will not pay attention to online. And so it's really caused a shift in our office and at the institutional level in how we talk to students and how we engage with students. We had gotten very good at WKU at talking about ourselves. We're the home of the Gatton Academy. We're one of only 4 institutions in the country that has been designated a safe community by the National Safety Council. We do this, we do that. And that's not what students, that's not how they communicate these days. They want to know how they're part of the story. And so we've really shifted our language in admissions and at the institutional level to make sure that instead of talking just about ourselves, we talk about, you want to be the architect of your own higher education experience. Let WKU be a part of your educational story, so that we are putting the focus back on the students, because that's what they expect. That's the world in which they live right now. And we've also kind of dealt with the emergence of these angry Gen X parents that are very much an active part of the recruitment process now. And these are individuals who, are used to conspiracies at the federal level, and you know, they remember very well the Watergate scandal and the uprising and unrest from various civil rights movements and the Iran-Contra scandal. And so they're very distrustful of institutions in general. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to convince them to send their son or daughter to an institution. And it's a difficult proposition sometimes. And so they're very hesitant to let go. And so we strike a delicate balance between these independent students themselves and their somewhat protective Gen X parents. And then we've certainly dealt with some COVID specific threats. Mike did ask us to touch a little bit on kind of what fall of 21 is looking like, and just general student activity. Nationally, most of the high school counselors that participate in surveys to collect such information estimate that this year's senior class, this is nationally, this year's senior class is about 4 to 6 weeks behind. Our application numbers that we track on a daily and weekly basis are about 2.5 weeks behind at WKU. So I guess you could kind of look at that as a positive. If this class is 4 to 6 weeks behind and our application numbers are only about 2.5 weeks behind, I guess you could say we're a little ahead of the curve, even though we'd prefer not to be working from behind at all. But that's kind of where we are right now. This one was really, these next two were really startling to me when I read this survey. And this was recent. This was a survey that was just released just the week prior to Thanksgiving. 47% of high school seniors in America right now have not applied to a single college or university. And that number increases to 54% among underrepresented minority students. And so they're having difficulty being engaged because they are not participating in high school in the traditional way. They're not interacting with collegiate admissions staffs in traditional ways. A lot of that just has to do with the lack of these kind of natural nudges, you know, walking by a fellow classmate in the hall that says, oh, by the way, I applied to WKU last night. Oh yeah, I need to do that. You know, those kind of interactions just aren't taking place. And so we expect that our application numbers will trail, but I also think that, you know, all of these students in Kentucky and beyond are not just going to suddenly decide not to go to college. I just think that activity is going to be late, and Ethan and I have had a number of conversations about that. Obviously, we're unable to make high school visits in Kentucky. There are no students even in high schools right now, and so all of our activity has moved virtual. And you know, Zoom fatigue is a real thing. It certainly is a real thing among our students, our seniors in high school as well. No college fairs taking place. No school-sponsored application days. We receive a lot of our application volume when a particular high school will gather their entire senior class and say, okay, everyone in the senior class is going to apply to one college or university today. Obviously, that generates a lot of application activity that just isn't currently taking place. Certainly no large in-person recruitment events taking place right now. And then I mentioned that lack of those natural, I call them nudges, but you know, those things that kind of stimulate activity and remind students, oh yeah, I do need to take care of that. Whether it's a teacher saying, hey, have you applied to college yet? Whether it's a high school counselor having that conversation or not. So our approach, and this is kind of a blend of our approach in a COVID world and a non-COVID world, we've really shifted our decision-making to be more data-driven, and thus the acquisition of Brian Campbell, one of your senators, to our office. He is our data analyst in admissions who provides us, keeps us abreast of trends and activity that we're seeing and student behavior that we're seeing across our website, across our inquiry pool, across our applicant pool. It used to be that it was very much a spaghetti on the wall kind of approach, 10 years ago in admissions, not just at WKU, but nationally, when enrollment wasn't such a concern and when student populations were growing and college going rates were increasing, you could just kind of rinse and repeat year to year. And that's certainly not the case now. We have to look at, well, where are we going to purchase names? Where are the students who look like, based on the information we have about them, who look like the students that tend to enroll in WKU from a data perspective? We're shifting our focus to increasing yield. I'd say prior to about 7 or 8 years ago at WKU, once a student was admitted, there wasn't a whole lot of effort put into building affinity with that student and maintaining that relationship. I think the assumption was just kind of, well, they're admitted, enough will come that will make our freshman class. And we know now that these relationships need to be nurtured, maintained, enhanced, and that happens in a variety of different ways. We've certainly increased our digital marketing spend this year and our digital marketing presence just due to out of necessity, because in many ways that's the only way we can reach students. Increasing our engagement as much as possible in existing markets, increasing our focus on parents, having a recruitment focus in all institutional messaging. This was really a priority for Dr. Caboni when he came to WKU in 2017. So not just in the Office of Admissions, but university marketing and the office that John Mark Francis works with. Dr. Caboni's charge to them was there really shouldn't be any institutional messaging going out that doesn't have at least some element of recruitment or student retention as part of its focus or as its singular focus. So no more just, let's just slap up a random billboard for recognition's sake in the university marketing office. But, that billboard needs to be encouraging students to come visit campus or to apply or so on and so forth. And so that's really been a shift that's occurred since Dr. Caboni came, not necessarily in admissions because our focus was always on recruiting students, but university-wide. We're surveying students to better understand our decision-making process. Each fall for the last 4 years now, we've surveyed 2 groups of students, those that we admitted to WKU that came, and those that we admitted to WKU that didn't come, either because they went elsewhere or they went nowhere. And to get a better idea of what did you like throughout the recruitment process? What worked? How did it compare to the recruitment process of other universities that were trying to engage you? Did you receive more communications, less? Were we earlier? Were we later? Why didn't you come to WKU for those groups of students that didn't come? What could WKU have done differently? So it helps us to tailor our communications from year to year so that it's not just a rinse and repeat approach. And I think it's important, I talked about the yield of students and the general percentage of students that we yield. This is something I think a lot of people are probably unaware of, but roughly you can think of our admitted student pool in terms of 3 groups, right? So about a third of the students that we admit come to WKU, and these are very rough numbers. About a third of the students that we admit come to WKU. About a third of the students that we admit go somewhere else. And then about a third of the students that we admit don't go anywhere. And again, those are very rough numbers, but we do admit a very large number of students, it's in the thousands every year, that don't end up going to college anywhere. And that's generally because of cost. More you and less we in our communications. I talked about trying to put the focus back on the students rather than on ourselves. And then we're having some really honest conversations about value with students that we didn't have to have and that we didn't have prior. And a lot of this stems from the increased competition with our community colleges in Kentucky, Sky and beyond. And so we're having conversations with students that just because something may be less expensive doesn't necessarily mean it's the best value. So there's a difference between cheaper and better value. And so just making sure that students understand their increased earnings potential from starting and finishing at a 4-year institution, their increased overall life expectancy being higher among students that start and finish at a 4-year versus a 2-year, just some of those things that people may not think of. that really go into the decision-making process now. People often ask, well, what can I do? And so these are maybe some things that you can take back to your various areas, and they're certainly in no particular order, but being outcomes focused in your communications. If you are a staff person in an academic college or an academic department, what are some of the success stories? What are some of the what's some of the outcomes data that you can share in your communications? You know, what's the average starting salary of your graduates? What are some of the Fortune 500 companies that your graduates have gone on to work for? Being aware of departmental or unique college level accreditations, being aware of faculty credentials within your college or department, being aware of unique opportunities. So is that a study abroad opportunity that's unique to WKU or unique to your department? Is that an internship with a particular alum that you can't find anywhere else? Bragging points about your physical facilities, again, kind of goes hand in glove with outcomes focused, but student success stories, departmental awards, university-wide statistics, not just, I think sometimes we get so focused on our own offices that we forget about the broader picture. Participating in recruitment events. In a normal non-COVID world, we host a number of recruitment events on campus, sometimes even throughout the weekday. And so it's very easy for offices to participate in those. You don't have to travel. In some cases, you don't have to come in after office hours or on the weekends. So participating in those, showing students as much as possible everything that we have to offer. And then allowing admissions to assist. Always blows my mind, you know, I'll pass by somebody on campus and they'll go, oh yeah, last week we hosted 300 students for this competition on campus. Yeah, I guess I should have told you that. So you could have given them some material. Well, why didn't you tell me? You know, that would have been a perfect recruitment opportunity for one of our team members to come talk to those students, or to provide, at the very least, to provide materials with their registration packets. I often ask, you know, if you didn't do it this past summer because we didn't have summer camps on campus, but generally I send out a couple of faculty, staff, all emails throughout the year reminding folks, if you're going to host a summer camp on campus, you know, share those rosters with us so we can make sure that we have those students in our database to engage with them and talk to them about future opportunities at WKU. And so those are just, I felt like I was speaking 100 miles a minute, but I don't want to take up too much of your time, but also wanted to make it a meaningful conversation. So that's, stop sharing here. That's what I had for you today. Mike, I don't know if you had planned for questions, or Ethan, if there was anything else you wanted to throw in.
Thank you, Jace. I think that was really very comprehensive, and I appreciate the way you described our process and our cycle to everyone today. I was just verifying what, you know, your comment, a couple of comments resonated with me that I wanted to emphasize with the group. A common concern with higher education today in American society is the cost and the cost associated with that. Well, the value and the return on investment in higher education well exceeds the cost commitment. And that's a part of the message that is important when you're confronted with that conversation about the cost. Not to say that that's not a concern, and that's not to say that that's something we don't work really hard to mitigate with students. Our financial aid and scholarship office is doing great work in trying to find ways to make college affordable for students who are challenged. Our Hilltopper Guarantee program that we announced for this 2021 year is an immeasurable step towards mitigating that challenge of finance as a point of access for students to the institution. So those students with the greatest financial need. But there's still some other students who are comfortable, but yet not affluent, who will still have to have some considerations about whether or not they would like to invest in higher education and whether or not they need to take on some debt to do so. The federal government's scholarship program is designed, our federal aid program is designed specifically for that, and student guaranteed loans. And it has a very traditional model that has been successful for many years. The average student debt load of graduates of our institution is $22,000 $23,988. So just right under $23,000. Now there's some more, there's some less, and there's some with none. And so that seems like, that seems like a large number. It is a large number. It's actually less than most cars, but it is also something that can be paid out over 30 years under a federal student loan. So there's a way to think about that in context. A lot of the concern that society provokes about cost of college comes from is exactly what Jace talked about, outliers with students with $100,000 worth of debt. That's not the story of Western Kentucky University. And there's a great return on that investment in terms of career earnings over the lifetime of a career, plus the college experience in and of itself, the access to the resources, and the continuing commitment and access that comes with the alumni engagement, connectivity, networking, internships in the incubator. I would be remiss if I didn't tie that back to Bruce's presentation earlier that we provide as part of the uniqueness. But really an important part of this recruitment story, and I think Jay said it eloquently, is how do we tie that into the student's perspective about a personal experience? And there are great institutions of higher education in this state and across this country. And students are going to have an opportunity wherever they go into whatever institution they choose. I tell students that you won't make a wrong choice about choosing to go to college. You will make a better choice about choosing to go to Western Kentucky University, but of course you have to expect that I'm biased about that opinion. But the best choice is to choose to go to college. And then after that, what we provide, the uniqueness of that is the WKU Hilltopper experience. It's that familiarity, that's that familial experience that we provide and provoke in our community. It's that personal relationships, which are so vitally important to the uniqueness and the genuinity of who we are as an institution. And so that's an important part of this conversation that I would like to resonate with in terms of Jace's comments, is that, we put forth a great effort in building a relationship with a student coming into the institution. And a part of what we do in our division of enrollment, the enrollment management part, is not just to get students to the institution, it's to keep students at the institution, to keep them engaged, retained, and to graduate. And so that is that continuation of that relationship. So you are all a part of that. And so we think of this institution as a whole as enrollment managers and not just this one division. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate very much your interest in this conversation today and your help, whether that's advertently or inadvertently, in the process of supporting our students towards our collective goal of graduating those students. So thank you, Jace. Thank you, Mike.
One statistic, you talked about it being an investment, and that's really how we try to get families to think about college. It's not an expenditure, it's an investment. One of the statistics I always like to share, and people's eyes get wide, on average in a good year, if you look over the last 15 or 20 years of the stock market, the average return on investment has been about 7%. Average return on investment for a college degree is about 15% annually. So double the investment in the stock market. So sharing information like that with families and with prospective students is vital. And sharing information about the value of a 4-year degree. And I won't get into all of my 2-year versus 4-year statistics today, but they're interesting. So.
Jace, Ethan, thank you so much for your time. And I like how you brought the point that we can all kind of help play a part in the role of helping recruit students, whether how big or small, and we could all kind of be on the outlook of ways that we can help encourage people or potential students to come to Western, whether it's in a campus event or just people that we know. But thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to open it up for any questions for Jace or Ethan.
Hi, Drs. Lux and Logan. First off, thank you for speaking with us today. My question is quite specific to my department regarding recruitment events. particularly the funding for our office and other departments. I am the office associate for the theater and dance office, and we regularly attend recruitment events, albeit now virtually. We have done several Zoom recruitment events, including GSA and YPAS, and regional recruitment events on Zoom. We pay for these events out of our department budget, which, as you are aware, has drastically been reduced. Will your office commit to helping with funding across the university in regards to recruitment events?
Ethan, that'll probably be, you're the man with the money in ESC, so I'll probably defer to you on that one.
Thank you, Jace. Rachel, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit on that on my end, and so I just wanted to make sure I heard that question correctly. You were talking about the cost associated with recruitment participation and whether or not that would be mitigated by ESC. Is that what your question was? If I summarize that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that's a great question.
Yes.
I think that's an interesting question that will probably evolve in terms of the conversation of our transition to the ramp model and how that relates to the engagement in recruitment and enrollment. I would like to say that yes, we will, but let me start by saying that we will at least be partners with you in the cost to promote and to provoke these opportunities for students. Whether that's we're hosting them and asking you to cover the cost of participation as a part, but ultimately I would love to be able to handle it all and just invite people to participate to enhance the experience. But let me defer to answer that question until I know more about how this next year's budgeting model is going to work out and how that plays a part into the part of the revenue resource we use for recruitment. So that's a great question, but I'm afraid I don't have a good answer for you today.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to hearing from you.
I'll add in my thanks for your presentation today and kind of tell a little story. I appreciate that you added the slide about how people can contribute. One of the things we've been able to do is participate in some of the on-campus recruitment events, Head for the Hill, Top, the Info Fair, things like that. Really miss those, be happy when they come back. But we had a student who was just received an Ohio Valley Emmy Award for her work on a production we do, and we met her at a Head for the Hill Info Fair. WKU was kind of on our radar, but not really television production, that kind of thing. So that was our one opportunity to pitch her the opportunities we have in our crew, and it really paid off for her and us. So thanks for that. And those events are really great. We have about 40 kids on our crew right now, students on our crew. And with COVID, that was our one resource for recruiting was Top last year. And it's really what kept us going. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Jordan. And Jordan and his crew, for those of you that don't know, they've just been wonderful partners with us in terms of video production and live video production when we're hosting events and so on and so forth. And that's, I did mention participating in those recruitment events, and without being, I don't want to be too critical, but it does always amaze me that when we host an event on campus, particularly one that takes place on campus during the middle of the week on a weekday in a non-COVID world, that we have entire departments that just choose not to participate. They don't have a single representative that participates. And I'm thinking, in some cases we have 2,000 people here. And stories like the one that Jordan shared of students who are coming here as blank slates. They don't know what they want to major in. They don't know what activities they want to be involved in. In many cases, that's how they find out about these kind of things. And that's how a number of units on campus have really found their superstar students. And it wasn't just a matter of convincing them to come to WKU, but convincing them to participate in be part of the video production team or marching band or forensics or whatever the case might be. And so when we get back to a world of being able to host those events, I really would just encourage everyone to encourage the folks in your various offices to participate. We have some that are there faithfully from start to finish, but then we have others that just don't participate. And I think it's those don't cost anything. They cost the department nothing other than a couple of hours of time at the information fair. And so I would encourage you all to be active in those and to encourage your colleagues across campus to be active in those.
Let me add to that, Jace. When we look at evaluating, try to evaluate college choice, try to isolate the incidents or the variables which impact college choice. It's not something that we can do. We're talking about decisions in the human mind, and the human mind's decisions evaluate and compile an infinite number of variables to make decisions. So we don't necessarily know what is the one thing that will resonate with all students to make them choose WKU. It could be because of a fantastic theater and dance program. It could be because of a communication and a brief interchange with one professional staff member at the top, or a faculty member who spends just a moment to talk about their program and say, you might be interested in this. It could be the fact that their significant other that they have from high school is choosing to go to WKU, and that's the reason they're coming here, regardless of whatever else we ever talk to them about. Or it could be because they're a long line of Hilltoppers and this is a part of their family legacy. All of these things have equal merit and weight and are indistinguishable between one student and the next in their outward appearance and presentation to us. And so the best way that we can be effective in recruitment is to provide as many access and opportunities to resonate with a student as possible, and find that one magic moment that makes them think this is the institution for me. It could be just being on campus and seeing the beauty and the majesty of what we have in terms of the experience. It could be that personal interaction. It could be that they have an affinity to the color red over the color blue. All of these things are of equal value and are so difficult to track. And so we try to provide the broadest spectrum and to provide the most opportunity to resonate with students where we can. And so these stories, these examples are really, really good examples of that context. We have to provide as much opportunity to engage with a student across all of our mediums so that we can find a moment that makes them think this is the institution for me.
Any more questions? Again, thank you for your time, Ethan and Jace. Some good information, and we just ought to remember we can all play a role in recruitment here in WKU. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jace.
Thank you all.
So the next item on the agenda is staff senate business. I don't have anything on the agenda, but does anybody need to bring any items, any new business up? Okay. All right, and staff senate email review. The only email we received was about contact tracing on campus now that the Grand River Health Department is not doing contact tracing by phone. And I guess I discussed that earlier, but WKU is continuing to contact trace here on WKU, at WKU. All right, so I guess the announcements, there's a Board of Regents meeting on December 11th. That's a quarterly meeting, is that right, David? And then our next staff senate meeting will be on January the 6th.
Hey, Mike, are we still meeting that first week in January since it's our first week back, or?
Well, that is the plan, but we can always push that back if we want to push it back.
I was just curious. I just know that for us, for our area, it's crazy busy. And I just know, I don't know if we'll have a lot of time to get the meetings out and if people will actually join if they're, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we could take a vote and see what works better for everyone. Or...
Yeah, we can. Okay, what does everybody feel? Does everybody want to meet on January 6th, or do you want to push it back a week?
I'm good with pushing it back.
Okay, I was gonna say at the top of the year, did we meet in January this year? Did we just decide to meet in February? Couldn't recall.
Honestly, I can't remember now, Chris.
I think we met, but I mean, it's whatever. I just know that it's just seems, for me personally, it would be better than next.
We didn't meet in January from our minutes.
Oh, okay.
Like, we didn't meet in
Hey, we
January.
did.
We didn't.
We didn't.
No.
Per my calendar, we didn't.
Yeah, I don't remove it from the agenda just yet because I like to see what kind of information we might could get or from the calendar because about state budget updates to see what we can get in January. We might have more information at that time. So let's kind of table this for the moment, and then we can decide whether we can decide later. We can just communicate through email whether or not if we want to have the meeting or not. But we might have. It might be best to push it back to the following week if we can get more information that week instead of the first week.
I would think that we should still have it, but maybe push it back to the 13th. That would be.
Yeah, we'll send out an email and make an announcement to everyone, and I'll be communicating through email with the staff in it. Just kind of keep y'all posted on what we're going to do.
And I had another question. Jennifer, were we going to discuss the staff stars at this meeting, or were we still waiting to talk about it?
We don't really have new news to report other than that the committee met. So I didn't know if we should bring it up, but we certainly can because the goal of the staff recognition is to have it up on the Staff Senate website for people to submit names for the early January. So the goal is to have it up by the end of this semester, which we're just going to have to kind of see. There won't be a lot of time if our meeting is the 6th, which would be another reason to push it back. If our meeting is on the 6th, that first Wednesday back, I don't know that we would have enough time to recognize people or even have enough submissions at that point in time, because we will need a little time to promote that it's available once we get it up on the website.
Okay. Is there anything else? Okay. So staff Senate members, just be looking for an email for me on when we're going to meet next. Since I have some more information, I'll send that out. Well, maybe the last time I see some of y'all on Zoom for this year. So I hope everyone has a great Christmas and New Year's and enjoy your 2 weeks off coming up in a few weeks. All right. Well, I guess we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. See you later.